We have 66 countries that have dollarized. Their currencies have collapsed. They lost 90% of their value in their currency, and then the banks locked their US dollars in and seized them. They lost everything. If you have a pile of money, say you have $1 billion, and you're in an environment where interest rates are high and the central banks aren't printing any more money, well, you could take the billion, invest it at 5% or 6% interest, and if the money's holding its value, then your savings account works. If you have that $1 billion and the money supply is expanding at 10 or 15 or 20% a year, then the way to protect yourself is to convert that currency into a hard asset. You either buy $1 billion worth of buildings, or $1 billion worth of land, or $1 billion worth of oil, or $1 billion worth of gold. The problem with buying gold is gold miners keep producing more gold. So over 30 years, the gold supply doubles. And so your money is losing value at 2 or 3% a year. And then nobody wants to rent the gold. It's hard to borrow against it. It's hard to generate yield on it. It's a dead metal. That's why people oftentimes go to like real estate, and I buy buildings and hotels and land and farms and timberland rights. Well, now I can generate some yield, and maybe I can borrow against it. I can mortgage it. But that's a 20th century idea, right? The idea of owning land and buildings has been around for a long time. The 21st century idea is, what if I had the best of both worlds? What if I could create a digital gold that you could never make any more of, that had no weight, that I could move at the speed of light? And then what if I could actually loan it out to bankers anywhere in the world and get a yield on it? Or what if I could borrow against it? So Bitcoin is capped at 21 million. It's a decentralized network, so no CEO, no company, or no government can change that. We don't even know how to change it. It's protected by millions and millions of computers spread all over the world. And, if you held a gun to someone's head and said, you got to change it, no one could. So the power of a decentralized crypto asset network like that is durability and integrity over time, over 100 years. I want to know that no one will ever create any more. You can create more gold. You can create more buildings. You could say, well, I can't create any more land, but yeah, you can't create more land on Central Park, but you can create more land in Kansas or the Great West. And so the problem with other assets is they're not scarce. Bitcoin can be thought of as just a speculative asset, and it's irrelevant to government. It's just the tale of some random, creature, right, in a show. And when you start thinking of it as digital gold, it becomes interesting to macroeconomic investors. But you realize gold is not the right metaphor, because you just park $1 billion of gold in a vault. And then you think of it as digital property, and it becomes more powerful, because now you realize it generates yield and you can mortgage it. And now it becomes a something that has 100 trillion to 200 trillion of impact. We talk about Bitcoin being maybe the most disruptive force in the decade. Well, many people think it's the most disruptive force in the century. And I give you some examples. We have 66 countries that have dollarized. Their currencies have collapsed. So they need dollars, but the traditional banking system is very inefficient at delivering dollars. So in El Salvador, 2/3 of the population didn't have access to banks, but they don't have a native currency. And so Bitcoin, because it's not just an asset, but it's a network. Bitcoin served as the underlying monetary network to deliver digital dollars and a savings account to 3 million El Salvadorian citizens in 3 weeks. So 3 million people download a mobile app, and they have a checking account with dollars in it, and they have a savings account that's been yielding 130% interest for the past decade. And what was the variable cost for that? Not even the phone. They've already got the phone. The variable cost was a 1 minute or 2 minute download of a mobile application to a phone they already had running over mobile line. So why should a government care about this? Well, Bitcoin is likely the network that spreads across the entire world, that spreads the US dollar to 6 billion people. Yeah, it would spread to 8 billion people if the Chinese didn't try to block it, right? But it will spread everywhere in the world, to Africa, to Asia. So Bitcoin is spreading the US currency. The US dollar is going to strengthen because of the Bitcoin monetary network running on a protocol called Lightning. Lightning allows you to move any amount of money effectively for free instantaneously. So for example, you can't send $50 via Apple Pay to a friend in Paris right now. You can hardly send it to Canada. You can't send it to Mexico. You certainly couldn't send it to your mother, if she was living in El Salvador. This is a big deal for countries, right? It's a geopolitical deal because in El Salvador, what that means is they're paying $400 million to Western Union and taking 4 to 8 hours to move money, and they can't move it except 9 to 5. And so Bitcoin and Lightning and that network means that you now have a technology to deliver free, instantaneous remittances to billions and billions of people everywhere in the world for the cost of a mobile phone download. So that's very interesting. If you live in Zimbabwe, or if you live in Venezuela, and if the currency is collapsed by 99%, or there is no currency, and you have $300, how do you save it for a year? You can't get dollars because you don't have a bank. There's no way that the US banks are setting up in a lot of these countries. You can't get a banking account. So that means you're living hand to mouth. And in the 30 days after you lose your job or you can't find food, you're going to starve and your family's going to starve. So Bitcoin is interesting to government because Bitcoin is an economic imperative to anybody that wants to maintain their wealth or property. That's $500 trillion. That's why Senator Lummis says Bitcoin is a better store of value than the US dollar. Well, it's definitely a better store of value than the Venezuelan bolivar or the Argentine peso, or what's the currency in Afghanistan, right? So she sees that, but the big tech companies like Square and PayPal, they see it as a technology imperative because we can now give a bank to 8 billion people in 1 minute. You're going to do more, you're going to spread your bank faster in 3 weeks in El Salvador than you did in 300 years with conventional banking. So, what happens when Apple and Amazon, Facebook and Google plug this in? Well, if I literally zapped all of your assets from your bank account tomorrow, which by the way, is just what happened in Lebanon last year, they lost 90% of their value in their currency. And then the banks locked their US dollars in and seized them. They lost everything. If I took everything you have, how do you have an aspiration for the future, right? How do you build anything for your family, for your community, for your country? You pretty much stripped hope from the world. And so hope is, very American. America was founded on the premise of the American dream. Come here and build a better life for your family, for yourself. Bitcoin's hope. Bitcoin is a very American thing. And you have a technology which is simultaneously a moral imperative, a technical imperative, and an economic imperative.